Okay, today we're starting a unit on finding the surface area and volume of solids, and we're going to start with rectangles, rectangular prisms, and cubes, which hopefully you are familiar with. So starting with rectangular prisms, a rectangular prism has 6 faces that are all rectangles. So it has a front and back, 2 sides, and a top and a bottom. And the surface area is going to be the total area of all those rectangles added together. And it is measured in square units just like the area of our polygons is. So let's come up with the formula together here. A lot of times you will see SA for surface area, or you might see TA for total area. They mean the same thing. So we can start with the bottom. So along the bottom here is a rectangle with dimensions L and W. So the area of that one rectangle is length times width. But notice that the top is a congruent rectangle. It also has dimensions length times width. So together, adding those two together, you get 2 length times width. Now let's look at the sides. So on the right side here, this rectangle has dimensions W times H, width times height. And the congruent rectangle on the left side also has dimensions W and H. So together, those two areas combined would be 2WH. And then to finish up, we just need the areas of the front and back of this rectangle. So outlining the front, this rectangle has dimensions L times H. So we're just going to bring the H over here. This is the same height as this one here. And of course the back is going to be a congruent rectangle with those same dimensions, L times H. So to finish up our formula, we have 2LH. So that is the total surface area of a rectangular prism. Now occasionally you'll be asked to find what we call lateral area. So I'm going to call that LA, standing for lateral area. The lateral area of a solid is going to be the area of everything except the bases. So I'm just going to jot that down. That's everything except for the bases. So what we can do is basically just take away this first part of the formula. The bottom and the top are our bases here. So if we take away this first part of the formula, that leaves us with 2WH plus 2LH. So that's how you would find lateral area. Now on the problems today, the practice problems today, you won't see any lateral area, but just keep that in mind down the road. And the last thing we're going to do is find the volume. So let's go over here to where we are describing volume. So the volume of an object is how much it can hold, and it is measured in cubic units. In the case of the rectangular prism, volume is really simple. You're just going to multiply the 3 dimensions together, length times width times height. And again, that's going to be measured in cubic units. So let's practice below. In example 1, we're going to find the surface area and volume of the prism. So when it just says surface area, that means total surface area. So I'm going to start by writing down the formula. It's always a good idea to have the formula right in front of you so you don't make any mistakes. So I'm just copying it down from above. And we know we have our 3 dimensions. L is 6, W is 2, and our height is 4. So plugging those in, we're going to have 2 times 6 times 2 plus 2 times 2 times 4 plus 2 times 6 times 4. And adding those together, we're going to have 24 plus 16 plus 48 for a total of 88. And again, surface area is always measured in square units. In this case, we're working with meters, so we're going to have square meters. So there's the total surface area. And for our volume, length times width times height, even easier, 6 times 2 times 4, and that's going to give us 48. And we know that volume is measured in cubic units, so we're going to have cubic meters here. or meters cubed. And we are done. So we're going to do a few more problems on the next sheet. And first, we're going to introduce the cube, which is even simpler. So a cube is a rectangular prism. You could use the same formula as we were using above, but we can make it a simpler formula because all the dimensions are the same. A lot of times you will see them labeled S. So S is the side length of the cube. Since there are 6 faces and they're all squares, the surface area formula is simplified. So we have 6 squares. Each of those squares has an area of S squared. So the total surface area is just 6S squared. Again, you could use the formula for the rectangular prism, but it's just much easier to use this new formula. And then volume, S times S times S, would be S cubed. So a simple example here, find the surface area and volume of the cube. In this case, S equals 3. Surface area is 6 times 3 squared. Remember your order of operations, exponents first. 3 squared is 9. 6 times 9 is 54. So we have 54 square centimeters. And then for our volume is S cubed. So that's 3 cubed. 3 times 3 times 3. And that gives us 27. And that would be cubic centimeters. And that's it for the cube, nice and simple. All right, last page, we are going to do some problem solving. So example 3, we have a rectangular prism. We know the width is 3. We know the height is 11. Didn't fully come out here. This height is 11. We don't know the length. We don't know x, but we do know that the surface area is 234 square centimeters. So I'm going to start by jotting that down. Surface area is 234. We know the width is 3. We know the height is 11. We don't know the length. So the length is x. What we're looking for in the end is the volume. But in order to find the volume, remember we would need to know length, width, and height. We only have the width and the height, so we need to find the length first. We need to find this missing value. So we're going to start by using the surface area formula. Again, I'm going to jot that down. 2LW plus 2WH plus 2LH. And now plug in everything you know. So surface area is 234 equals 2 times L times W, so that's going to be 2 times 3x, plus 2 times W times H, so that's 2 times W times H is 3 times 11, plus 2 times LH, 2 times 11 times x. And let's start simplifying our equation. We'll have 234 equals 6x plus 66 plus 22x. And one step further, combine our like terms, we have 28x plus 66 equals 234. So now we can solve for x. We can subtract 66. 234 minus 66 is going to give us 168. 168 equals 28x. Divide both sides by 28, and x equals 6. So the hard part is done. We have the length, x equals 6, and now volume is length times width times height. So we can plug that all in. The length now, again, we found was 6. So 6 times the width is 3 times the height, which is 11, and that gives us 198. Units are centimeters. We're looking for volume, so that's cubic centimeters. All right, and just a couple more. Example 4, back to the cube. The surface area of a cube is 54 square inches. Find the length. So now we're going to work backwards. We know the surface area. I'm going to start by jotting down the formula for the surface area of the cube. 6s squared. Plug in what we know. The surface area is 54, so I'll replace SA with 54 equals 6 times s squared. Now we can solve for s. Let's first isolate s squared, divide both sides by 6. So 9 equals s squared. And we want to figure out what squared equals 9. You can take the square root of both sides. So s must be 3. Since we were working with square inches, we know that our side length will be in inches. So s equals 3 inches. All right, and one more quick problem. We're dealing with a cube again. This time we're given the volume is 125 cubic inches, and we want to find the length of a side. So I'm going to copy down the volume formula. Volume equals s cubed. Replace what we know. The volume is 125, so 125 equals s cubed. So now we want to know what cubed, what times itself 3 times is 125. So basically what we're going to be doing is, instead of taking a square root, we're going to take a cube root. Now we haven't done that too often, and your calculator, usually it's not very easy to find the cube root button. So it's going to be much easier for us to just make a quick little list here. So 1 cubed, 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. That means the cube root of 1 is 1. 2 cubed, 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. That means the cube root of 8 is 2. And we could just continue this list. 3 cubed is 27, which means the cube root of 27 is 3. 4 cubed is 64, meaning the cube root of 64 is 4. And you'll see that 5 cubed, 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. So we have our answer here. The cube root of 125 is 5. And you can make your list a little bit longer if you needed to. We'll keep any problems like this, we'll keep really simple, so this list will probably be enough. So you could show that you're taking the cube root of both sides to solve. So s equals 5. Again, the volume was given in cubic inches, the length of a side would just be in inches. And that's it. Your practice today will be in IXL.